An unknown person gifted me a large fortune, which happens to come with a fatal secret. In essence, I did not know who Arthur Hale was. Initially, his name bore no significance to me, especially when I saw it neatly typed on an official-looking letter that came in the mail on a dreary afternoon. I was sitting in my tiny apartment, lawfully struggling, when the envelope arrived from a law firm I have never heard of. At first, I thought it was a fraud. If you haven't followed our channel yet, you might never get to see the videos again. But if you do follow us, then congratulations, you'll have access to all the stories and videos so you can watch and listen whenever you want. The letter explained that I, out of everyone, had inherited money from a cousin I did not know all that well. He passed recently, and his last will and testament entailed that I was sole heir to his estate, which includes a mansion, alone in the wilderness, on top of a few $100s that made my mouth dry. I should have been immeasurably happy, but instead, apprehension began to fester in the pit of my stomach. What motive would a complete stranger have to pass everything on to me? It seemed completely unbelievable. Nevertheless, after fighting for so long, this kind of chance was too tempting. The following week went by in a blurry haze of legal formalities, phone conversations with Hale's lawyers, and planning for my visit to the property. As the date grew closer, the anticipation I felt began to mix with an unusual form of anxiety. The mansion was secluded, situated in a distant area of the countryside, far from the city, and the lawyer had been curiously vague when talking about it. His tone was unsettling to me for some reason, but I dismissed it. The day I got there, the weather mirrored my mood perfectly. Overcast clouds shrouded the estate in an unnatural shadow. Eyes widening, I gazed at the enormous mansion. Sitting in from distance, it was massive enough to serve as a portal to another era. Mystifying stone towers and walls heavily adorned with ivy loomed over me as I drove up to the entrance. The house, Victorian, or mayhaps even older, and throughout the years had gained a sense of haunting magnificence. Yet with this magnificent structure, something else emerged, a distinctive eeriness to the mansion. The lawyer handed the keys to me with a mock smile, wishing me good luck, and walked away, leaving me alone at the door of my new house. The home smelled as if it had the musk of age and decay. It was just as cold and dark inside the house as it seemed from the outside. I explored every single room and discovered framed staircases, long halls, and ancient furniture covered by a dust blanket. It looked like the house had been deserted for a very long time because of the silence. After exploring the spooky house, I finally came across what would be my master bedroom. I placed basic necessities where I needed them and got on the huge four-poster bed. Although the atmosphere surrounding me was very unsettling, I had grown exhausted due to my long trip, eventually falling asleep quite quickly. Not even a second of peace was experienced after that. I woke up in the middle of the night to what I can only describe as whispers far off in the distance. Outlandish as it is, there was a sound that was soft yet distinct enough to comprehend. It sounded as though the house itself was emitting it, like it was possessing a soul. My heart began to race as I completed a scan of the room I was in. I put myself at ease, telling myself that it was just creaking of the house. But the sound didn't stop. I pulled my eccentric covers closer, enveloping myself with them. I wanted to unlike my heart, but it did not work out. Rest was completely out of the question for me now. The whispers continued to persist, however. It was a soft noise that sounded like it was rising while lowering at the same time, barely attainable by my ears. The following day, everything I experienced from the night before was put on the nervousness. After all, I was stationed in a new place all by myself in a gigantic house that was previously devoid of any life. It is understandable why I would feel as though I was being unsettled. But later in the day, the growing sense of discomfort became exceedingly stronger. I moved around the house and discovered quite a few family portraits that are pretty ancient, their faces blanketed with an expression that was very hard to read or comprehend. However, out of all of the portraits that were present in the house, there was one that caught my undivided attention. It depicted a woman who had a very austere jawline and eye, while her smile bordered on disturbing. The name below said, Eleanor Hale, 1898. As I walked about the space, I had an irrational feeling that her eyes were tracking my movements. However, the portrait of Eleanor stirred up a level of discomfort that was electrifying. On the subsequent night, I was able to hear the whispers again, with the major differentiation being that they were now much louder and could be understood better. The words were not decipherable to me, but it felt like I was having a conversation with something that was close to me and could feel as if there was something standing outside my door and whispering to me through the gap. In a bid to find answers, I ended up looking through some older divorce papers and files that were present in the house the next morning. From the information I was provided by the lawyer, it was clear that Arthur Hale, in his later years, led a more or less seclusive lifestyle and neglected stepping out of the estate. He did not have a close family or friends. However, these were only the preliminary findings. The grave nature of what I was uncovering was, to say the least, disturbing. On a bookshelf where dust was abundant, I found a box that contained letters that were mostly addressed to Arthur from a woman named Eleanor, his great-grandmother, who I had seen painted the figurehead portrait the day before. The starting letters were rather innocent and accustomed, though, after reading through them, the last few letters were described in a frantic tone and quite desperate. Aside from these, I can also hear them at night. Leaving behind the door opened lets me catch a glimpse into the depths of hallucinations which fade away, but pervades my mind profoundly every day. I am scared, Arthur. The house allows no quarter. All are entwined and none can be free from it. A particular letter, more haunting than previous ones I read from Eleanor, sent chills down my spine. This letter was penned a few weeks from her date of death. Am too far gone, but mark my words, you should escape before you lose your wits to it as well. The house will never set us free. I relent my letter, petrified after furious shaking taunted me from converging severely. Consternation birthed from countless whispers and exceptional void, had nullified all my thoughts. Shivers, noticing that the house was not simply interred under an envelope, but was an insatiable passion of intern life andied within, which completely made sense to me. That night I could no sleep. Whispering and breathing amped constantly, louder owner of the room stripped her voice of her lips. The rotor now being in the guise of a woman, made non-acceptance my only avenue to retreat to. Thus, I no longer had the pleasure to sleep. Not only did the whispering turn relentless, its volume also increased to insane levels, leaving me no option except panic. They enveloped me and the room instead of remaining constrained to the walls. They gazed at me closely, making it weirdly clear that I'm simply another toy to amuse themselves with. In hopes to escape that apartment's clutches, I woke up and tried to leave the house through the front door. My efforts were in vain as much like the rest of them, there was no way to open it. Trying to push only led my body to get covered in unnatural amounts of dirt. The doors seemed completely untouched. I not only looked like, but felt like the house raping itself around me fully. I had the urge to hurl, and the instant I did so, I ended up laughing. Fear gripped me and dashed my heart to pieces, but I found myself running, desperate to find an escape. And just like that, I was once again back at the library, where the portrait of Eleanor was gauging whether I would scream next or cry. Those exquisite eyes of hers gleamed with undeniable delight, and that smile, had it grown wider? I had simply forgotten how many nightmares I had decorated my life with. Whatever was trying to force me in the box had made this much clear. The leftovers of my sanity were slowly dragging me down along with it. Blinded by the horror, I decided to run. So I frantically combed through the worn-out pages of the book. To my astonishment, I stumbled upon a diary that belonged to Eleanor, only to find the answer I was desperately hunting for. The curse is ancient. It is tied to the land, to the very foundation of this house. It claimed my husband, and now it comes for me. No one can escape its grasp. We are bound to it, forever. I always doubted if it was painful to die. Oh, how foolish I was. It's clear as day now, each of those pages crafted with the utmost care. Arthur Hale clearly knew this was a never-ending tale of horrors. That is exactly why he must have so effortlessly given me the cursed estate that he ran from. What a cycle, what a proof of betrayal. His curse never crossed my mind. No wonder he tried to warn me. But the house wasn't done with me yet. I was bound to suffer, roaming aimlessly in the mansion with spirits stricken down by the curse that blinded Arthur Hale. To say that I was shocked would be an understatement. I could finally hear the whispers forming words. You are free to move about the cabin. Now on to the next challenge. Last one is over. Your number is up. I fought for my freedom, but like always, the panic had me paralyzed. They laughed while chains unlocked, mocking my confinement. My heart knew that the only way to break the curse was to face my fears ultimately. So that night, Eleanor's portrait held my attention and forced me to indulge. The one thing I dreaded more than her gaze was Arthur Hale's last letter. The portrait elaborated further than what I presumed. What is she warning me about? And why is he letting slow death seep so freely? The curse will never be satisfied. There is no escape. That single line hit me with the force of a car crash and stripped me of my ability to breathe. All that riches, homes, and possessions seeking attention was all a means to jack my life away. He got there in the end, but made a foolish choice thinking that placing a curse on me would free him from the shackles. Little did he know that he put shackles around me. Time is next to me, battling between life and whispering the amount of existence I have left before the walls charge towards me fully equipped. Once done, I will be nothing but a memory. Where is the option to take charge and decide the stand best to set me free? My research consisted of travels to certain locations over the span of years that led to this moment. I have never feared the unpredictable. It's unbelievably fascinating. Relics have a certain aura that demands respect. A practice hand crafted over centuries has assembled itself into a curse. It aches. When touched or dug over, it erupts into a vile scream that fractures the earth. A voice pleading through the air swells over the countless possibilities this may transform into. The rot and decay of Eleanor is revitalized, and with that, screams saturate the structure. After the curtain of fire settles, an eerie sense of relief falls over me as the walls stand unscathed. The silent screams of rivers regretfully unsung have come close to breaking through, only whispering their agony. There is magic buried deep within the opulent. Stripped bare, it is left as magic, unsung to my curse. But oh, how wondrous it is. I hold hope that this insanity will guide me home. No wonder magic sang through the skies too deep to touch. It is my opus, the last touch, my utopia, forever drifted away. Terror is a sought-after addiction. Moving unto the nightmare hand in hand is my wish, and oh how I bow down. I beg for magic, scraping the short remains off this cruel land. Epilogue. Sheep's music. For weeks on end, I screamed and shattered, all to transform the moon into a wondrous star. But alas, floating upon the tips of my fingers. I rounded off my night reading a mysterious letter with no return address and only a single sentence. In the intricate game of deception, you always end up being the pawn. The mix of your and house always seems to capture my ear. It's like the phrase is lost in chasm, somewhere distant and faint. It appears the curse has not dissolved and is still intact. I had only gotten started.